alive. Obviously, he's turning 90 today. This is one of his proud moments up on top of his big case thrasher. This was probably back in 06 or 07 when we were still thrashing with the big case. And obviously, all of y'all know Henrietta here. And I believe there's some numbers on there when he bred the hogs and bred the sows, right, Chady? And then, of course, what put Chady Atteberry and Oklahoma Steam Thrashers on the map back in 1987. And at 90 years of age, he's still kicking and screaming, and we couldn't be happier about that.
Hey, Chady, see the daylight?
Yeah.
You see the daylight? Yeah.
You see the daylight under those wheels? Now here's some old friends of Chady's that have. One of them's gone on to the reunion in the sky. That's Richard Rohrvig there on the right, and of course, the great granddaughter of J.I. Case, Helen Brigham Case, is there in the middle, and that was at the Case Expo in 2006, and that was the last time that Richard Rohrvig was alive. Was at that show, and so it was. I was glad to be able to catch that in front of a Model T, no less, and then. Of course, there's many friends that are still around, and this was back in 2005, not a year after Chady had discovered the Joyland 65 was still alive in the Round Top Barn at Joyland Park, and this was our very first fire, and we invited some close friends, and we had it at the Fry's place down in New Alla, or Pink, and of course, John's in there in the picture, and you recognize some of the others. The Wagners and the Mars are in there, but that was a great day. That was a milestone day, Chady, when we brought the Joyland 65 back to life. And then Chady's legacy is going to live on because he's lit fires in lots of people's hearts to have passion about preserving all of these legacy steam engines and all the things that made America great back in the teens and 20s. He's done that, and I'm honored to be one of his mentees over the years. And there's another one of Chady's mentees. That's Cam Carpenter. At the ripe age of 5 years old, he was, or maybe he was 6 by then. But back in 2005, you remember Cam coming up to us on the engine, and he asked 500 questions in a matter of 5 days, and at the end, he was a case man. Right, Chady? So just, and Cam's, he's running his dad's Rumley steam engine now, and he's still a case man at heart, though. And then, of course, where would we be without the family? And I told you, Blake, you'd be in here. So this was... Chady, he's got a fondness for Alice Chalmers tractors, for everything orange as well as everything black and gray. So the grandkids are a big part of his life. And of course, his daughters. That is an old picture of Beverly and Chady in front of 1636, correct, Steve? Which Steve now owns the Double Keck. When was that taken? Is that 80s? Probably. This is Beverly and Chady. Is that out at the Round Top Barn, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And then, of course, 20 years, 30 years later, that's at Rolog last year at the Case Expo, where the 150 horse case, which none of us, including Chady, ever thought we'd get to see alive, was unveiled.
I don't want to break in too bad, but 1636 on the smokestack here not too long ago, they've got some films from at Peacock Show 1960 and 61, and my engine's there.
Really?
As well as Walt Danhuser's 25, the big reefs. They used to build DA cat, chain to chain, drawbar to drawbar.
Well, Chady is a D4.
Was it a D4?
But it gets bigger every time. It'll be a 10 next time. You know what I mean, Chady? It's a D4, but now it's a no.
There was a son of the guy that was there, and he said his dad told him, Walt had that pop valve on the reeve screwed down pretty tight.
I
And he
like
said
him.
they all backed off. Lyman Knapp told the same story.
Oh.
We walked as far back as we could, but he still was able to see it because he drugged that
I bet
cat.
he's at,
Oh
he
yeah.
probably had it at 220,
Hey, before
200 pounds, 210.
before this goes a little farther, I just want to tell you a little joke story. This man right here, he,
Kevin Anderson.
now,
Yeah.
he's on the top of, his son built the big 150 horse case engine up, and of course his dad was in on it, and he's a big farmer, but he came by, I didn't know him, in South Dakota. Of course, I think this picture was taken up in Canada, wasn't it, Jeff? This picture here.
Yes, yeah, that's a
With the
real
big engine. But the dad, he came by and I didn't know him, and he got me, and we went over to Enid, and we turned south. If you at the John Deere dealer, you turn south, and there's an old dilapidated blacktop. And out there in the pasture, there's 2 mules. He said, "Well, there's 2 Democrats." I found that his religion, I mean not his religion, his politics. I didn't say anymore. Anymore when I go by, there's some horses and mules out there, I say, well, there's some more Democrats.
And his religion is closely tied to his political affiliation too. Okay, and this was at I misspoke. That's at the 2018 unveiling of the 150 in Andover, South Dakota. This past year was at the Case Expo up in Rolla. So, if anybody ever thought that the incline demonstration wasn't very popular, we just
That's what
showed.
I heard
We
down in
just
Pawnee. They said that they're not really popular anymore. We're going to do away with it.
yeah.
Did you Photoshop that?
Helen,
We crowdsourced
No,
it.
that's the one of
Yeah.
the girl. That's the Photoshop one, right? The girl
that was
on the
Photoshop.
on the
And
end.
I have scoured.
anyway, I want to tell you a story. The rest of you, well, you can see the crowd there. This is a Pawnee, and when I quit custom combining, I went clear from Muleshoe, Texas, into Moosomin, Saskatchewan, and I wouldn't get back in time to make the show. But one year I got there, the show was just over, and a couple of old steam guys were walking off, and I said, well, how was the show? Oh, they said, just another smoker.
Yeah.
Well, that's when I decided better to change the smoke. Well, Dale Wolf, Lyman Knapp,
Kenneth Kelly.
The Prony break and got it going, and Amos was a wonderful speaker and could hold a crowd. But anyway, I showed a movie of it when we run at Wichita, Kansas, Joyland Park on the incline. Well, that built a fire under Mr. Kelly, and that's when we built the incline there. And Helen, that's myself, with what we call the world famous Elgin Watch 40. It's out in my barn now. But what I was going to tell you, and I've told a bunch of you, but Paul Martin right there. You know, I hate to see him. We've had a little draw back in Pawnee, I think, lately on excitement. And I said, well, somebody said it's just another smoker. No, what change is. So I went and Paul, sitting right there, got dressed up like an old lady. And anyway, before we had this chain link fence or so snow fence all around to get the crowd back, and Amos Rexman, he's a great speaker. And anyway, this old lady, which was Paul Martin, got in there, and the engine's fired up and ready to go up the incline. And Paul said, well, we need to get that old lady out of there. Get that old lady out of there. I said, oh, she won't hurt nothing. Well, about that time, the old lady got on the engine and started up the incline. That was Paul Martin right there. The old lady.
What year was that, Paul? Do you remember?
But Paul's always pulling something on me.
It'd been 95.
Yeah, somewhere right in there, yeah.
I want to tell you one more story on Paul.
Oh no,
And
Chady.
maybe it's on me.
It might be on you.
Paul, one night, we finished up sawing there, a Pawnee. I had about 4 or 5 more big logs sawing. I had my bigger case engine. I said, Paul, would you like to finish sawing? And of course, I wouldn't let no Tom, Dick, and Harry run my engine. And I knew he was a good engineer. Well, anyway, Paul finished sawing. Well, I don't know if it was that fall or the next fall, out to Fairview, when Paul would get the Mennonite bus, and he would take us out to eat. Well, I went to get on the bus, and Paul said, now, Chady, if you won't tell anybody I run a case steam engine, I won't tell you're a priest you rode on a Mennonite bus. So anyway, we had a little fun.
Chady, we had the one night we hooked the 30 horse and your 65 drawbar to drawbar with the chain, and we pulled each other and just put a load. You know what I mean? Back and forth, and we were chuffing. It was about 4:30, and Ricksman had a line of tractors to get on the brake, and he said, boys, just a minute, I'll be right back. And he came running over there. He could not stand it that we were over there pulling each other. My God, guys, we got to put the pull meter between here, you know, and these guys are over there, tractors are running, waiting on Amos, and we're chuffing each other back and forth, just putting a little load on it. Ricksman was beside himself. He couldn't stay at the brake.
My God, man, we've got to put the pull meter in here.
Hey, and Chady, Charles Costed comes to the Fairview show. You know Charles and Randy? For the record, he went custom cutting with Chady.
That's right.
And for the record, Chady wasn't as much fun to custom cut with as he was to play with steam engines. It was all business.
You could probably ask Beverly and Barb that question too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Go, Jeff.
All right.
We've allotted 10 minutes for every photo, Jeff.
That's right. Well, it's just like Chady had a story for every
Yeah.
slide out in the barn, and he said, "Now pay attention. This one's important." So, and this, of course, from being the first engineer to resurrect the incline in '87 to something that we've talked about our entire adult lives, was being able to see the 150 horse case built from scratch by Kevin and Corey Anderson, and this was the culmination of this. And Chady and I talked about making that trip to Andover for at least a year. And he said, well, if I'm still alive and able to get out of this chair, we're going to be in Andover in 2018. And sure enough, it came to pass. And man, the stories that could be told and that were told at that show. So just amazing. So now let's go back a few years. Chady, you remember this gentleman, don't you? Mr. Knapp?
Oh yeah, he was my best friend and my teacher.
This was his 25 horse Russell steam engine, and this was plowing at Lyman Knapp's place, right? And you guys were pulling a big 8-bottom plow over there, right?
Add a few bottoms.
At least, yeah.
Add 2 bottoms.
Is that Dale and Steve on the
Dale and Dave Bennett are.
Dave Bennett, okay. And so Dave's no longer with us.
Dave vividly, yeah.
Yeah, that was quite the day. And I'm gonna have you remember the story of pulling all 3 of those engines with your Keck Gonnerman?
Yeah.
'Cause that's a story worth telling.
That old Keck, and she was a good old engine, a terrific engine. Steve owned it now, I think. And well, him and I went to get it. You went with me, didn't you? Or was
You and Amos went to go get that at Ed Peacock's.
It was at Peacock.
Yeah, and
the Russell, that Lyman, that was the first steam engine I rode on when I was a little boy over in Grant County. It came by, that was clear back when I was a little boy. There were still a few of them running, and the farmers used them. And my dad, of course, being an old steam man, he helped the guy get some water, and they put me in coal bunker, and we went down this road, and that was in a Russell engine. And then when Lyman got his 25 horse Russell, which is that one there, well, as the first steam engine, I pulled a throttle on, so I've had a. Well, I guess I like all makes of steam engines.
That's the newest Russell. That, for the most part, it's still got the original tubes in it until we replaced 3 or 4 years. Dale on that guy's original jacket.
That's what hasn't been at the show.
Yeah.
We don't want to take the jacket off.
I see less use.
Little line, but I don't think you ever.
No, it's
Take care of it.
We can run it at home,
Yeah,
but
yeah, exactly.
we do need to put a couple of clues in it.
Yeah.
until Will Ratliff a couple of years ago got a hold of a really nice 25 horse Russell out of Ed Larson's estate up in Kansas. We hadn't had a Russell on the showgrounds, and now we've got a real sawmill and pulling engine there to go along with the
I
cases.
like to hear that thing on the sawmill.
Oh yeah, she's a sweetheart. Okay, next. So from plowing on the prairies to performing for thousands of awed spectators, this was just part of the process of getting the incline ready. Of course, the bottom picture there in the left, Chady's blowing down the engine to get the water level just right at the bottom of the glass. So when he's on that incline at almost 45 degrees, that water doesn't pull over and end up blowing water out the stack. And so, Chady, the meticulous, what he calls the crackerjack engineer, taking care of everything and getting everything right before he goes up the incline. And so with that, then is that Dale? Is that Dale on there?
Don't know.
I doubt it. Could be, I guess.
Because you were the. It looks like Dale.
I think that was Dale.
Did you ever wear a hoodie? I've never
Yeah.
seen-
Okay.
Okay. That's Dale. We're just gonna let him go with it.
I went up with him quite a few times.
Okay. It's Dale. All right. Dale's very modest, very shy. But that's Dale Wolf helping him go up there on the incline. So this is the event that put Pawnee on the map for so many years, and so many people came to see. And with good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, we'll be on a dirt incline this year, practicing to do the real thing in another year. So after it'll be 4 years this year that we've been without the incline. So 2021 is going to be a big year. So Chady's got friends all over the world, and I went through my files to look for pictures of everybody I could possibly find, and sadly I don't have pictures of some of you. And Marvin, you got to be at the show this year so I can get pictures of you with Chady, okay? So the next slideshow we do for his 91st will be on there. But this is Joe Graziana out of Wood River, Illinois. He's been a big help in our sawmill, and he's a steam guru, and he loves Harrison Jumbo engines. Of course, there's the three amigos, or we could call them the three stooges at times. But Ross Staggs sends a happy birthday to you, Chady. I talked to him last night, but that's Ross, and of course Bob Mars is here with us. And this was an afternoon after the sawmill had ran, and we were just unwinding at the Sawyer's Lounge, is what we call it, over there by the Shingle Shack.
It's Skid Row.
Skid Row. There's another one of Chady's lifetime buddies on the left there is Tommy Lee. Tommy Lee. And this was up in the cab of the 353 locomotive back in 06 or 07 after I invited them up on the locomotive with us, and they took a couple rounds with us at Rolog. So that was a great moment, and I believe, if I remember correctly, we got you up on the locomotive this year too, didn't we? In 19, and took a couple of laps with us. This is at Forrest Pence's up in Harvard, Nebraska, and this is Gerald Schmidt that Chady's talking to, and Chady was good friends. You knew Forrest Pence pretty well, and this was one of the Rumleys in his barn, and I believe the tractor behind it is that Townsend gas tractor? I think that's what's behind it. I've got a bunch of pictures from
Townsend
Forest.
isn't that big.
Yeah, it's not that big.
No, you're right. That may
That looks like a square radiator Altman, maybe.
with canopy.
Yeah,
Okay.
the square radiator Altman's had it look like a stack of.
There is one there.
Was the early Altman 3060.
But that's Gerald Schmidt, who is now the caretaker of all of Forrest Pence's equipment, and they show it down in Clay Center, Kansas. But you can tell they're going over some very important information because Chady, he doesn't put his finger on his lip very often in thought mode. And so here's another one of our good friends. You remember that guy, Chady? Randy Pence. Randy Brentz, excuse me. Forrest Pence. Randy had a nice freight steam engine, and which I still believe he has down at his place.
He thrashes.
He thrashes, and they have horses too, I
He
think.
has big draft horses he farms with. Or
And
used to. I haven't seen Randy in a few years.
I saw him about 3 months ago. I was at Denny's eating breakfast, and him and his wife come in. No, you're all right. You're all right.
yeah. Here's this is at the thrashing lecture, not but a couple of years ago, and this is Chady holding court. And I don't know that gentleman, but obviously they had some things in common. And this was right after thrashing, because we always had lots of bystanders and lots of questions afterwards. And here's three famous amigos. We talked about Richard Rorvig earlier. He was a huge case man. He was also a Minneapolis man, right, Chady?
Yes.
And then John Schrock is there in the middle. And this was the case incline that they built for the 2006 Case Expo in Rolla. And so Carl took his 40-horse case up there, and he and Corky Staudinger from up in Montana, I believe, that's his 2040 gas engine case up on the top, and then of course Carl with his 40 there on the incline. So just lots of friends and lots of relationships across the miles. And this doesn't even include all of your years at Mount Pleasant that you spent there. Here's some more of our Pawnee crew, one of which is no longer with us. That's Mr. Tuttle there in the red polka dot hat. They were sawing timbers to put on the incline that day. And Melvin Gillen and Kyle Reeves, and I believe this is Mr. Bryant. Is that correct? Kenneth Kelly's son-in-law. And then, of course, the man and his machine. This was in Fairview, and we did something that few engines have ever been able to duplicate in this picture right here. There are two 65-horse cases, the Joyland 65 and Chady's, and then two 2075 Nichols and Shepard engines belonging to Dale Wolf and the Carpenters, Caleb and Russell Carpenter. And then there's little Cam there in front of the smoke box door, and then the Baker that was revived from almost the scrapyard from there at Cummins Equipment Company in Enid. So this picture's on the wall in Chady's hallway. And I need to get you one of those, Cindy. I've got a big high-res picture of this. But this is at Fairview in front of the big locomotive, and everything lined up just perfect that day. It was one of those bannered mountaintop moment days, wasn't it, Chady?
Yeah.
That we could all be there. And there's Jerome Kane is next to Chady there at the front wheel of his engine. And so this took a lot of work, getting all the steam engines in one place and aimed the right direction and get the photographer in the right place. This was a great day. And last but not least, this is what Chady does the best: is he passes the torch to us younger generation of steam engineers. This is at Fairview after the thrashing, and little Cam had just been learning how to pitch bundles, and Chady and Cam were walking back to the threshing machine. And this captured the whole show kind of in one photograph. And so God bless you, Chady. You've forgotten more things than most of us will ever know in your years. So we we're honored to be friends with you and to have been part of your journey and your mission. And I salute you as being a member of our armed forces and serving our country dutifully and faithfully. I thank you for that. And with that, happy birthday, Chady.